Hello, and welcome to a very special episode of Let's Get Metaphysical. I'm your host, Sam Cross, and today I am delighted to introduce my very first guest, Rosalia Quintana. We were introduced in the most quantum universe way, as of course tends to happen. And I want to kind of tell the story before I introduce my conversation with Rosie because I feel like once I'm with her, we're just gonna go. And I want to make sure that I do her introduction justice as well as tell this little story because it's great. I love evidence of synchronicities and things that explain how the universe works. It never ceases to amaze me. So, Rosalia is a nurse practitioner by day, but she's a spiritual and energetic badass all of the time. She's an author, a speaker, a breathwork facilitator. She calls herself a quantum alchemist, and that's exactly what she is. She works with people to transmute their trauma and addictions and to basically fulfill a vision for a better humanity. So, like, that to me is the definition of spiritual badass. Now, her story is super interesting, especially because it includes a dramatic episode, like a near-death experience, where much of the way the universe works was revealed to her in one fell swoop. And hearing her story, I listened to a podcast before we ever had a conversation where she was being interviewed, and it struck me so deeply because what was revealed to her confirmed a lot of suspicions I've always had about the way universe works. The concept of a life review, of choosing your parents, evidence of sacred geometry that shows how interconnected everything in the universe is. And there was one thing that especially stood out during her near-death experience. She received a message: music is the answer. Now, that's been the subject of a lot of my thought lately. So when we were introduced about a week or two ago, that struck me on the deepest level. And I thought, okay, we are meant to talk about this. We are especially meant to talk about music and frequency and a lot of things because nothing is an accident. When people are connected and their sort of worlds combine, it's because there's a message there that needs to be amplified. And I strongly believe that the music is the answer is one of them. But anyway, as with many soul connections, as soon as we were connected, there was just an instant sort of understanding. And I think that that'll be evident as you watch our conversation. And like any intuitives, we're not planning this conversation. It's going to go and flow where it needs to go and flow. So I'm so excited for you to hear this. I'm so excited to have it. I'm talking to her in 2 seconds. And I really hope you enjoy this very special episode. You were given this message, music is the answer. And I guess I haven't yet come to a clear definitive. And then once we were connected with the that
Yeah.
going through my consciousness lately, I couldn't believe it. 'Cause there's always so many threads, there's so many reasons we're connected, but I feel like that's a big one, is to kind of give you clues and to give me more context for what this means. This music is the answer.
You've just put that so beautifully. I
Thank you.
Yes, I love how you give context and how you mirror back just different aspects of myself in a sense, right? So music being the answer, lately I've come across so many synchronicities. Like since our conversation, literally, videos have just been popping up. I don't even, it's not like I'm purposely Googling like, okay,
Mhm.
frequency and vibration and all of these things.
Yeah.
They just kind of pop up into, and I just find myself sitting a lot more with that. I mean, I've read up books about frequency, hertz, brain waves, and just farther to try to comprehend, but it's like another rabbit hole, if you would say. Like there's so much about music and frequency to understand. And this idea that frequency is the medicine of the future and all of these things, right?
Mm.
Which is absolutely beautiful. But yeah, in my near death, just getting that it's complicated because a lot of times I will refer to saying on different podcasts, I don't know anything. And the reason I say that, first of all, is because I don't, or I feel that way, even though all the answers are within us. I feel like we're kind of like an onion, right? Like
Hmm.
with this micro perception that I have right now, sitting with you, I don't have the answer. I wish I did to tell you, hey, yeah, music is the answer, XYZ, here's the formula, whatever. This is how it all kind of comes together. I don't have that. And I think the journey maybe not only towards that answer, but towards the true self, your true essence, the journey itself, that's where it's at,
Hmm.
rather than
Yeah.
that one answer. I don't know. How do you feel
Yeah.
about that?
I like that. Like I feel good about that too because I feel like it's the multi-dimensionality of music that really gets me. So when we think, okay, music is the answer, I don't think there's one answer. I think there's many answers because if you think about it, music is the most accessible thing to all of us. Like if you look at the ways, the modalities there are to heal, right? To get back to that authentic core, to connect mind and body, and there's yoga, there's all kinds of different plant medicine, but there's different barriers to entry where music has no barriers to entry, right? Like that's
I love that.
everyone hears
Yeah,
music,
even to
even
activate your pineal gland.
that's it.
Yeah, it's
Music has
just
the
it goes right
power.
through
Yes.
everything.
And we talk about like the power of movement, right? Like somatics and moving even just out of joy, out of healing, out of music inspires that. It's like you don't even know why you're dancing. Like people just it's like it gets straight past our ego, past our fear and defenses into the
I love that.
right? It's like it inspires this sort of primal state of being and it speaks directly to the subconscious. So music is mantra, music is movement, music is frequency healing. It's literally I can't think of a more complete and accessible modality or tool for healing and becoming authentic. And it connects us to ourselves, it connects us to each other. I was thinking about how when you're playing an instrument, like I started piano. Well, I've always kind of dabbled, but I started piano lessons in 2019. I was reflecting on that after our conversation and thinking that connects you because you're using left and right hand, it connects the hemispheres of your brain. And I'm thinking music has structure and also flow. It's masculine, feminine. It's like a balance of literally everything. I can't think of
Absolutely.
an area
Definitely
of life
activates
music
the
doesn't touch.
hemisync. I love that. Yeah, definitely the hemisync and in regards to the hemisync, since forever in caves and papyrus and everywhere you have that masculine feminine integration, that the integration of the two hemispheres, like different depictions of the same idea, right? Finding that balance within ourselves, within our psyche, within our own archetypes. And I love what you mentioned about being multidimensional and infinite. So I want to touch on that. The
Hmm.
text, the raw context, like the law of one, basically, goes a lot into dimensions being kind of like split into infinite octaves of music. So
Hmm.
there's so much to this, that to learn as we go, kind of like,
Hmm.
to discover. But that really, and with painting, I have found that music evokes a lot of different stuff that I put on the canvas for sure. Um,
Hmm.
a lot of like I've been working a lot with freedom of expression and movement and more creating from my feminine now because I've
Hmm.
been operating on the masculine for so long. It's caused a lot of burnout and just it's not where I want to be, basically.
Yeah.
So I want to go into that, giving myself permission and not feeling guilty about doing something I enjoy has been so difficult, believe it or not. I know it sounds stupid, like why would you feel bad about doing something you love? But we've been conditioned to live in this go, go, do, be productive, like operate a certain level,
Yes.
like what is considered productive and valuable versus what really connects you to your soul, to allow source, to be one
Mm,
with source as you are of service and as you live your life, right? Um,
mm-hmm.
so yeah, I've been working a lot with that and incorporating music into the artwork and just trying to do things a little bit different because the old way has not worked out so well. So I definitely have to look at other options.
Yeah. Oh, I love that because that doesn't sound stupid at all. I feel like I mean, that's what we're raised with, right? And we touched on this in our conversation before too. It's that like in different in our human incarnations, right? We all are held to varying degrees to that same idea that picking something based on its level of respectability or how much money it earns or and often I think what we're trained to do and how we're taught to evaluate things is on their dollar amount. So we'll basically sell our time for money as if those are two different currencies, right? Where it's like as if our energy isn't just one thing. It's like we are taught to segregate artificially.
Could we let's pause for a moment there for the listeners and for ourselves. Is that okay? To really
Absolutely.
just integrate what you've just said.
Mm,
Our energy is our currency. Our attention is our currency. Who we choose to spend it, how much we choose to spend our time, what we choose, all of these things. Energy is the currency. And we've
mm,
been so deceived by everything else external. And I invite everybody to
mhm,
kind of just go within and start asking questions. Yeah. It's not to, you know, not to live out of conspiracy theories or fear or anything like that, but question, is there another possibility? Is there another way of doing things, of operating, of thriving, of creating maybe like I think a lot of my kids, like what is the kind of world I want to leave to my kids, to my
mm.
grandkids? It's I mean, I'm really sorry, but I would hate for them to kind of land in the same place that, where we're at right now. It's really not the
Yeah.
greatest. So I definitely would want to do anything in my power to kind of, this little parenthesis in eternity to kind of leave it just slightly better when it's my time than how it is. So yeah.
Mhm. That I'm so happy you slowed me down because I'm used to living in my masculine too.
Sorry.
So I just go and just like speed through. But it's true, right? It's like we don't I've been thinking a lot about this lately, just the where the locus of our decision making comes from. It's been external, not internal. And I'm talking about the entire West because we're not taught trust, right? We're taught that to trust the universe appears insane because you don't get the full puzzle at once. Like we're taught, okay, here's your list of options. Which path do you want to pick? And it's like, bunch of careers and you're like okay, rather than okay, what feels good, what do you enjoy creating, and trusting that way will assemble itself. Like when you're raised by people who've picked from the list, that's terrifying and it sounds kind of crazy, right?
You know what? You just mentioned something that I was meditating one time, and in this meditation, I I was at the tip of a cliff, and Mother Earth came forward and she said, "Jump." And I
Mm,
said, "Absolutely not. I
mm,
am not jumping. There's nothing to catch me. I'm gonna die." Right? And she wasn't mad or anything. She gave me like a little glance and she said, "Jump." And I was like, whatever,
I
it's a
love
meditation.
this.
I'm not gonna die. Let me just jump. Right. So I jumped in and I was completely held in this beautiful rainbow bridge. And I couldn't see the
Mm,
entire bridge. And then she said, sit. And then I thought I had nowhere to sit. Me, stupid, I didn't get it. Like,
mm,
it's trusting again, right? And I
mhm,
said, well, there's nowhere to sit. I'm going to fall if I sit, right? I sat. A blue butterfly came and landed on my
mm,
finger. And she said, you're going to be working on the Blue Butterfly mission, hence behind me on my Instagram and everywhere
Oh,
else. And there was a lot of information coming forward
I
in
love
regards to
that.
that.
Yeah.
I was like, and then there was something along the lines. So a lot of these meditations, a lot of powerful stuff comes through, and I try to record it because I forget everything. Um, you're in a different state, so it's
Hmm.
I don't have a lot of the recall unless I immediately record what's happening. Um, she said something along the lines like, "Take the step, and the bridge will appear." Like that was the main message, right? Like you're gonna be sustained and held,
Hmm.
and try telling that to Cuban parents. Yeah, they're like, okay, this one's gone way,
Yeah.
way, way
We
beyond
lost
her.
her.
Lost her. That's it. She's a lost cause. We always knew she was a troublemaker from the start, but now she's really just outdone
She
herself.
gone.
She's
Yeah.
gone. Yeah.
Totally. But it's so interesting because like I mean what you're describing resonates so much because I mean of anybody who, is kind of trusting that way and has that experience of having jumped and then finding out that either the net appears or you have a parachute in your pocket, something you're like it wow, do things just work out? And it's wild because I feel like there's this level of excitement, like you want to explain it to other people so that they can do it too. But you also understand that when you're coming off of like there's a lot of we basically are living to keep ourselves safe, right? Until you've had kind of a shakeup, like a spiritual shakeup, you understand that that can be very destabilizing, and you're kind of. So I want to ask you about how you see things because I think I've received messages mostly in dreams or just a sense of knowing, like a clear cognizance. Are you clairvoyant? Like
Mhm.
when you see things in meditations, is that like how does that look? I'm
Yeah,
so
so
curious.
it's beautiful that you bring this up because it's not a cookie cutter thing, and we all have beautiful gifts and different things, and different things open up at different times for us, and just like
Mm.
so I'm gonna just bring my wife for a moment into this. Our channels are completely opposites, which is beautiful
Mm.
because
Yes.
I learned from her style. She learned from my style. She gets stuff and then I get stuff and then we put it together. It all matches. Kind of like
Mm.
she'll get stuff always a month or so ahead of me. Like her channel is like she has that. And then for example, for her is a lot of the knowing, the feeling. She has, I feel like a lot more grounding energy to her, and she's just very assertive
Mm.
and she'll be like a compass. Like she'll just know this is what we need to do, like, which is absolutely beautiful.
Mm.
Mine, I see and hear. I don't have a lot
Mm.
of the so much of the feeling or the knowing or I know because I see, and because I hear it. And those are my most, I guess, let me see what the English word for this is, but developed, I guess, you would say. So yeah, that's how I do things. It's my third eye opens and I
Mm.
see it just like if I'm seeing a movie. And
Wow.
that's how, yeah. And then that could happen in a dream. That could happen also in meditation, during breath work, painting. Sometimes she's driving and I want to clarify that because I don't want people to think I drive and I'm completely gone, just in case somebody might actually think that. Like she's driving and sometimes we're listening to something, like she plays a lot of instruments and stuff like when I'm painting and stuff. So that really helps me kind of like go into that flow state that you call. And when
Hmm.
we're driving, maybe we're listening to something and that music will kind of give me like almost like in a trance state. And then I start like just going into my own little kind of meditation. Um, those are kind of certain instances where these events, I guess, kind of happen and unfold and help me on
Mm.
my path, kind of. Um, but the teachings I
So
receive,
cool.
those movies like Kung Fu Panda, that the teaching is so vague that you're just like, tell me, just tell me, like, what do you mean? Like,
That's
so it's, Yeah, it is absolutely crazy. Like they'll just come up with like this little one sentence thing that is so like,
Wow.
like nothing. And then you're just like, give me the whole thing. Like just
That's
and but
so
it's a
cool.
now I just laugh because it's just such a funny
Yeah.
relationship. And then there's a saying in Spanish that says, los maestros no dan puntadas sin tener hilo, which means like there's you're gonna find proof that of what they're telling you. Like and I've been able
Mm.
to have that physical proof of what they're saying time and time so many times that I just
Hmm.
have to trust. I've been proven so many times with actual material evidence that it is undeniable
Hmm.
to me. And it really, I'm the only
Yes.
person that needs to know that. Like, this is for my soul path, not for yours, not for the audience,
Hmm.
not for somebody else. We all have our own journey. And if this is what has been working for me, keeping me away from suicide, from depression, from,
Hmm.
a lot of the things I've had to sit with and deal with, I welcome that. And that sits okay with me, it gives me a lot of joy, purpose, mm, clarity, peace. A lot of that happiness I was
Hmm.
seeking almost has transformed into peace, which
Mm.
is very interesting.
Mm. Oh, I like that. Yes. Okay. Because I want to bookmark that because I want to say also my partner and I were so similar. She's got gifts like her channel works more like yours does. Mine works more like your wife's does. And it's so affirming, right? Because you're often receiving the same messages but in different modes. And it's fascinating to me because I've only recently started asking her like what it looks like because I didn't realize I don't have the strongest visualization. It's pretty vague. Like mine, because mine's more a sense of knowing. I don't see things. She was telling me that she closes her eyes and what you described like a movie. I was kind of like, wow, like that's neat. I feel like even my dreams are a little bit fuzzy, but I know what's happened, but they're not like it's not with that visual clarity. It's just really cool to know that we all once you know your sort of mode, you can kind of strengthen that and you're kind of like, okay, I don't need all of the ways of receiving. I just need to kind of focus on my channel. It's interesting. But
Yeah. And little by little, different ways will continue to expand for us.
yeah.
Like, that wasn't always the case. I wasn't looking for that, like these are things that little by little throughout the years is that they've been developing. Like I cannot tell you I had those gifts as a child. Some people do. That's they've been
Mm,
kind of waking up little by little, and just expanding as my own journey unfolds.
hmm You touched on it in our last conversation, just the fact that you went into, of course, like a very logical field, right? You were talking about how you and your wife are like scientists, and basically what you've been shown is kind of incongruent with how you were trained. Yeah, completely. But although I feel like, that intersection is becoming, with quantum physics and the science and spirituality, we're becoming very aware that they are the same thing. But being sort of ingrained in that training of the logic brain and then now expanding it, you said something last time about how much your work has changed, like your added the way that you feel. And I want to talk about that because I think that sometimes I think we have this idea that to follow a spiritual path, for some people, that'll mean completely leaving what they're doing. And for which is kind of me. And for other people, it means that you're going to do what you do in a totally different way. So I want to know what your experience of that has been like.
So, I love that you want this is something I'm passionate about speaking because um for me personally, I come from a lot of poverty. Born and raised in Cuba, we had nothing. Like literally the people that lived with me had to kind of like not eat a meal so that then we can kind of have more food and then that I could have a meal. So the floor was made out of just ground. We didn't even have actual floor. When it rained inside the house. So from that
Mm,
kind of poverty. So obviously, you know, because of what I've been through as a child, I've been like a hyperachiever and, just
mm,
very masculine energy, do, achieve, have, and have money, make sure I
mm,
never go through that again, make sure my family never goes through that again. So for me and for a lot of just Hispanics in general that are immigrants in another country, it's kind of going and started again from the Maslow hierarchy of needs, right? You
Mm,
need safety, you need food, you need shelter. So maybe for somebody that's here that has their family here that has had maybe has a good economic status, not completely out there, but stable enough where you're able to study and go to school and you don't have the pressure of paying rent or paying all these things that come with being an
mhm.
immigrant in a new country, right? That you don't have to go right to work.
Yeah.
So for me, I've always had to work and study at the same time and do all
Mm,
of these things. So it's kind of like building the pyramid from the bottom up. So naturally
mm,
for me, when I had this, I don't know if you want to call it awakening or whatever, it's always within our heart. Like that is our essence. It is a remembrance of who
mm,
we are, and why we're here. But when that came along, I didn't have the luxury of just being like, boom, that's it. I'm done. I know I got a little glance of what my mission is. Goodbye to everything else. Bye 3D world,
mhm.
bye Matrix, and here I go. You know,
Yeah.
I had to pay rent, I had to pay bills, I had two kids, a whole family. We have elderly in the family that live with us. So I couldn't just automatically give up on all of that. However,
Mm,
what did change, like you mentioned, was the way I operate in my job. So I was at a different
mm.
job where it wasn't as fulfilling. So I was doing a lot of remote, which I know sounds like a wonderful thing, but
And
I
this is
decided, okay,
and nursing, right? Like you were, it was the same, like,
nursing, nurse, yeah, we're nurse practitioners. Yeah, but we were doing it, or at least I was doing it online at that time. And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go back in person because I feel like I could have a lot more human connection.
mm,
And I don't know, it's just that sense of service, but from a different place. I said, okay, that
mm,
that could work well. So I did make that shift, and my interaction with every person that comes across me is beyond here's your prescription, here's your diagnosis, here's your
mm,
imaging, right? It is we end up talking about everything else except probably like why the
mm.
person even came in. It's like crazy, right?
Yeah.
And everything is very synchronistic, very intentional, very just present with that person. I'm no longer like, okay, next, 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 next. Like, how many are sitting outside? When am I
Mm,
leaving? Well, it's kind of like all that noise is gone. And I see
mm,
myself sitting across myself, literally, not hypothetically. Like, okay, I'm attending to myself. I have to have presence, love, compassion, patience with myself. How can I
mm.
better serve myself sitting across this chair? So it's just
Wow.
completely different. The way it has hit there's no separation. For all I'm
Mm,
concerned, I am also the other person. So that, of course, I mean, how do I want to treat
mm.
myself?
Yeah. Wow. That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
That reminds me of like what you described, like when I first heard you telling the story of your near-death experience and talking about how you were shown your past lives and that being the like there is no separation. Like we are all fundamentally the same. We're just in different forms. And
yeah,
like how much did that, I mean, I'm sure that probably informed exactly what you're talking about. Like the with
yeah.
the
I'll give you a
basically
real
talking
life
to yourself.
example if you want.
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
I'll give you two examples of how that translated for in certain situations that were a little I guess you will call in other times I would have been triggered by these things. And I
Mm.
still get triggered. Don't worry. Yeah. I just go to my family's house and I'm triggered all the time. No worries. They're always keeping me in check and making sure I'm I'm having a full human experience. I haven't gone
That's
anywhere.
good.
Oh yeah,
Wow,
yeah.
that's
I
a
love
good way
that.
to put it. That's
Yeah, yeah,
funny.
yeah, yeah. So for example, we had this patient that I would just say she's very complex case. She has a lot of mental health diagnosis, but not only that, like a lot of health issues and just very complex case. It's natural that this person would be operating from a place of hate, anger, frustration, just a different vibration. And she
Mm,
came in very aggressive. She was having like a schizophrenic episode. She was just
mm,
really, really out there. She came in throwing stuff, talking back to the girls in the front desk, talking back to,
mm,
like just and really just like throwing stuff in the office and stuff. And she just was very adamant about seeing me. She didn't have an appointment, nothing like that. Um,
Mm.
and she came in bursting through the door and she was gonna like throw the computer out to the floor. And I said, XYZ name, before you could do that. You could absolutely do that. But before you do that, the only thing I'm gonna ask you, would it be okay if you sat down for one moment, hold my hands, and we breathe together? Is that possible? And then you can throw the computer.
Wow.
That's no problem. That's okay. You,
Wow.
if you have that inside and you absolutely need to do that and you feel that's what's going to solve your problem right now,
Wow.
you can do that. I'm not going to hold you. I'm not going to restrain you. I'm not going to fight with you. That's okay.
Mm.
But all I'm asking, would it be okay? 2 seconds, hold hands and breathe together. And then you can do whatever you want. But I was really like looking into her eyes with a lot of
Mm.
purpose in what I was saying.
Mm. That's
Listen,
higher self stuff.
the moment I held her
Yeah.
hands, she completely broke down. Completely broke
Wow.
down. Like she was just, she's like, ah, like, and just like, she couldn't handle it anymore that day. It just got to her.
Mm.
She's having a really bad day, right?
That's
Like she
so
didn't have money
beautiful.
to
Like,
get her meds. She had not been able
oh.
to get her meds, and she's in a lot of pain management meds. She had not been able to pay because she was
Mm.
evicted. So obviously I
Oh my
didn't know this,
God.
but this is
Yeah.
all going on. Um,
Yeah.
And I said, "Don't worry. How much do you need for your meds?" She brought out the actual, pharmacy thing. It was like 97 point, I don't know what cents. Don't worry. I'm gonna sell it to you. Pay your meds. It's okay. And that's it.
Wow. Oh my
Everything
God.
just, you know, I would have
Calmed.
never acted like that. I'd be like, call the cops, get this crazy
Yeah.
lady out of here. Like,
Yes. Like that to me is see, this is why I'm describing like that's spiritual badassery. Like because
Thank you.
it's that ability to see beyond the surface because you've seen beyond the surface. Like you know that there isn't separation. You know that what we're looking at is not all there is. And that is so beautiful because what a humanizing no, wouldn't even say humanize, super humanizing, like to be treated with respect that way, to be treated as okay, even without the knowledge of that there was more going on. It's like you had an intuitive knowledge that there could be, like because that's just your worldview, but you don't need those facts. Do you know what I mean? Like you were operating as a mirror. That's so beautiful because that could have gone completely differently. That could have
Oh
just been
yeah.
another
Oh no,
thing to
me 7 years ago, I would
yeah.
have been just I would have lowered down to like and responded with aggression
Mhm.
probably. Who knows? Like I was like, I'm not
Mhm.
having that. I'm Cuban. I'm like, absolutely not happening. Like what do you think this is? Like, yeah.
Oh my God. Like once you've seen beyond that once you've accepted and seen beyond the veil, it's like it can't go back. Like
No, I can't. I
there's
have
no
not been
going
able
back from
to.
that. Yeah. You're like, I'm trying. I can't.
No, yeah, I talk to my wife a lot about that. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know because it just uncovers so much and you look at life so differently. And I'm like, I wonder how
Mhm.
I would be operating if I had not. It saved my life. I know it sounds
Mhm.
contraindicated to it did. It did. I don't know. I don't know what in what place I would be. Um, even mentally, emotionally, like I could really see the heaviness of the human experience and how that affects especially our
Mhm.
mental health.
Mhm.
I mean, it is a
Mhm.
lot. Like I feel like our
Yeah.
connection to source has been severed. Um,
Mhm.
and there's so much spiritually, like there's so much in regards to the spiritual side of us that
Mhm.
it's not taught. We don't talk about it,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So I feel kind of like the West is still trying to play catch up,
Yes.
with yeah.
Big
So, but
time.
little by
Yeah,
little.
that's it, right? It's like the opening up of doors. Like I see it as like a long trajectory where what humanity's going through is what so many of us are going through personally. It's like the macrocosm of a personal development journey, just on a big scale because I mean what we've been taught like with patriarchy coming in and we've been mistaught. Like I think it's even worse than not knowing what divinity means and that we have it. It's we've been taught a version of it that, you know, it answers it gives people some answers for what they're looking for, but they're often the wrong ones, right? It's like this idea of like the scary Santa God that if you are good, you get reward later. And it's like, no, 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 no. If you trust now, like your human experience can be beautiful. It's not a later thing. It's not a reward or punishment thing. It's not, and it's like, again, like you said, you know, try telling this to your parents. It's like try selling that to people where that's been the dominant narrative of their lives, whether or not they subscribe to it or not by choice. You know, it's
You mentioning this brings three things to my mind.
oh, I love it.
One, one is a map of consciousness that my guides provided for me, and I'll send it the free PDF in
Mm,
case you want to share it with anyone.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I was in the car and I said to my wife, hurry, 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 give me something to write with, hurry, hurry. Whatever. The only thing I had was napkins. It ended up being a napkins, kind of like a lead pencil or something. I had nothing
I
else.
love it.
And I'm like, wait, wait. And I kept, and I just, another napkin. And then I was able to put this really crappy map of consciousness together, but I was able to grasp what they gave me. So I'm like, okay, I got it. I got it. No worries. I went on Fiverr, had somebody, because I saw the colors exactly how they wanted me, how it
I
looked,
love it.
everything, what needed to be on there. And I said, I'm going to share it. Okay, so I'm gonna share that with you and with your audience in case somebody
Oh,
wants to
yes,
look at it. It's
please.
absolutely beautiful. It helped me
Oh, I'm so
like,
excited.
it starts with me. Ah, interesting.
I
Right.
love
And
it.
my
Oh my God, I'm so
self-reflection,
excited.
like, interesting. Okay. So yeah, I'll give you that. That's one thing. The next thing that brings me to mind when you talk about this good bad stuff is about the way my higher self has explained karma to me was kind of
Mm,
like in a way that a nurse would understand it. She said, karma is like balancing your electrolytes, is not good or bad. Like it's not punishment.
mm,
It's just you naturally. It's something like your body will automatically try to balance the electrolytes in itself.
mm,
Like that's
mm,
karma.
mm,
It's not like you're purposely or like you need to pay for something, which obviously all these
mm.
you see how the messages are so like you're like, yeah, there's like probably multi-dimensional answers to this. What do you
Yes,
mean?
totally.
Like, yeah, I don't know. But that's one of the things they've said. And
I love
they're
it.
always so funny. They just say weird stuff like that. I'm just like, it takes years for me to even like come around to it again and be like, oh, that's what you're saying. Like, and even that is
Yes.
limited. So,
Yeah.
I don't know.
We're just out here trying our best.
I'm doing the best I can.
Okay, because I've found that because I don't actually have, at least at this point, I don't have a direct connection to my guides. Like the way that you're shown things, like I feel like my guides either communicate more subtly or I'm not yet at the point of I'm not really sure what that'll look like in the future. But like I wouldn't say I have like a very strong psychic connection with them. But I notice that I get a lot of messages again in music. So if it's uncanny. Like I'll be stuck on a ruminating thought, song will come in on in a cafe that's like literally don't worry about it. It's like it's the lyrics will hit immediately or it'll be a song that means something to me. And that always blows my mind because I'm like, that's frequency. Like that to me is direct evidence we're living in a vibrational reality where those aren't coincidences. It's like thousands of times at this point where like it took me a while to kind of clue in because I was like, wow, that's neat. Wow, that's neat. It's kind of, oh, Sam, like that's not an accident. Like that's how the universe communicates. It's right. It's images, it's songs, it's
Yeah, as part of my near death, I did see there's definitely a lot of sacred geometry involved in everything.
Mm,
For example, this is the symbol that represents my soul. the sacred geometry that
Mm,
represents. So it's very interesting. All of this other subtleness and way of communicating and of, beyond our five senses that is so beautiful and so fascinating. Um, I think little by little, as a species, as we just go in this natural process of evolution and just expansion of consciousness, eventually, we're going to discover so many of our abilities, so many of the dormant DNA that's within
mm,
ourselves that's going to start, you know, according to me, which has no research scientific basis behind it, it's just my personal opinion. But according to myself, we can alter and change our own DNA.
mm.
So,
Although that has been affirmed also, like by like the do you read like Joe Dispenza or have you like
yeah, I'm
heard from
familiar
him?
with his
Yeah,
work.
I thought you would be and he's just one of them. Like I haven't looked as deep into the DNA stuff as you have, but like I know that he talks about that and like I can feel that that's the case, right? Like changing gene expression based on, I mean, we can make ourselves sick. We can heal ourselves too. It's like, but it's funny because I feel like often the fear-based story when we're living in a fear-based society is easier to believe somehow than the positive story. And I think that's part of where we're moving as a species is understanding that. And I've I've never seen I've seen sacred geometry, but only during like with plant medicine, like during psychedelic trips. There I've
Mhm.
seen it, and it's amazing to because without I think it's difficult to imagine seeing it without seeing it,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
But
yeah. It's
once you
definitely
do, it's wild.
yeah. Um, there have been other times without psychedelics, kind of like in a dream state, where I've been able to see
Mm,
sacred geometry, but this has been very few. Like
hmm.
you could count it with one hand. And sometimes I tell my wife, I think tonight something's gonna happen. And she tells me, whenever you say that, it never happens. And it is absolutely true.
You're like trying to
I'm
set
like,
the intention. It's like wishful thinking.
yeah. And she's like,
It's so
it's never
funny.
gonna happen the night that you say it. We've gone over that. Like it so months or years will go by, and then I'll have this one episode of beautiful sacred geometry. I'm just like, yes.
Oh,
Like I'm just all in it. I'm just, oh my God, this is so blissful and so amazing. But yeah, it's never when I think it is. Like I don't have it on command that I that I can do
mm.
that. But
That's funny.
yeah, but it's definitely very interesting. There's so much that I don't know that I'm just like enjoying the journey of discovering like a
Yeah,
little kid and coming
I
aware
love that.
of the magic that's within
Mhm.
us.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Oh, I love that you ended on that. Yeah. The latest, I just one more image is like the latest version of it that I saw was it was during a psychedelic mushroom trip, and it was like reality looked like almost like a snake skin. Like, with the fractals, there's like tiny pieces that as the snake moves, they shift and adjust. I saw everything that way. So thought, intention, feeling, it was like we're all affecting each other with this like beautiful rippling of a layer that
Oh,
we can't see under normal like perception limitations. And it was
s-
blissful. It was like, wow, this is gorgeous, like a symphony.
I'll share something don't normally share. I've shared a lot in this podcast
Mm.
that I don't normally share because there's a lot of personal stuff. But you make me feel very comfortable. Um, So one of the latest meditations I had, I'm sitting and learning a lot with I also learn a lot from non-psychedelic plants. Like I do a lot of work with
Mm.
non-psychedelic plants. Um, and I've been working with the 13 original grandmothers. It's just kind of like if you want to think of like an archetypal consciousness of the feminine, very
Mm.
closely related to Mother Earth and the moon, and just the 13 moons, and just all of these different things, and learning from them, learning from spirit, because I feel in my case, at least, they've been some of the greatest teachers I've had,
Mm.
come from that realm.
Mhm.
Um, so sitting a lot with them, and we were all in a circle, and I saw this thread of light coming from my heart, and I was knitting it, and they were all knitting as well. And it was like they gave me permission to be in their circle, and I was like extremely honored to be there and to knit whatever it is we were knitting. And then I was like, but what are we knitting? What are we knitting? Um, and they said you're gonna paint what we're knitting. So, my intention is literally to paint with my eyes closed and
Mm,
paint what we're knitting in the white canvas. So there's a
mhm,
lot of, stuff I'm not sure. In another meditation, I've seen myself knitting, but without them, kind of like the flower of life, like from with a golden thread,
mm.
just kind of knitting that. So there's been a lot of interesting stuff that I don't comprehend. Like you get
Mhm.
little glimpses and pieces. But I'll start with painting. I think that's a good there might be something there that's very healing to me and maybe to somebody else when they
Mhm.
see the painting. So I'm definitely creating and operating just in my own little bubble somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, that resonates. Like everything else you say, that resonates big time.
Yeah.
Yeah. My gosh. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing, especially because, well, as you said, like this has gone in different directions than you generally share. And I really,
I
really
mentioned this would
appreciate.
happen. At
Yeah,
least I got
yes,
something
you
right. I
knew.
I
Yeah,
I mentioned that.
that you
Yeah.
knew for sure. Yeah.
That's the only thing I knew. Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Okay, I'm
Been
just gonna pop.
beautiful. I'm so grateful.
Thank you.